Many of you were here last year as we honored David and Chiwetel for their commitment to those struggling in Nigeria. As I was thinking about who we should recognize this year, I went to them for advice. They both joyfully recommended their friend, and in Chiwetel's case, his once and future co-star, Benedict Cumberbatch. Like many of you, I first got to know Benedict through his TV show Sherlock. I remember feeling a jolt of excitement as I watched the show for the first time. It was a rare and precious experience for me. So I already knew Benedict was a masterful actor, but that wasn't enough, not for me. My family and friends here will tell you I'm one of the least starstruck people you'll ever meet. I've always been far more curious about what lies behind the gloss and the shine, what lies in someone's core, who they are beyond whatever fame or wealth they might temporarily possess. Last year, one experience in particular gave me treasured insight into Benedict's core. Like many of you, I was thrilled to hear he would play Hamlet in London. I thought seriously about making a trip to the UK and paying whatever necessary for a ticket. But I happen to work for a small nonprofit in Los Angeles, and my dad isn't paying me nearly enough to make that trip remotely possible. Thanks, Dad. I actually need to pay for parking, yeah, $2. But thankfully, one of the performances was broadcast out to theaters throughout the country. So I joined a packed house in Beverly Hills to watch Benedict in action. It was an amazing experience, of course. I remember leaning in as one with the whole theater as Benedict began to say the words "to be or not to be." But even more impressive to me was what he did right after the play was over. Benedict made a direct appeal for donations to assist those suffering in Syria. He recited a poem that has stuck with me ever since I heard it almost a year ago. It's called Home. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. You only run for the border when you see the whole city running as well. You have to understand, no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. Benedict used one of the biggest stages in the world to eloquently and selflessly advocate for those suffering in that bombed-out, forgotten kill zone called Syria. The bright lights were all on him, and yet he gently yet forcefully redirected them towards children dying in the shadows. In doing so, he called us all to account and shook us from our stultifying apathy. Kobna Holbrook-Smith played Laertes opposite Benedict. He's a good friend of mine, and he told me that Benedict originated and pushed hard for the idea of using donation buckets to raise money after the play. He pushed hard for the buckets to be there for the entire run of Hamlet, and then he pushed even harder for the Society of London Theatres to do the same thing for all their productions. They resisted. He persisted, and he won. Yes. And the refugees won, and humanity won. This is just one instance out of hundreds in which Benedict Cumberbatch has used his matchless talent as a vehicle to serve those in dire need. He has ascended to higher and higher levels of fame, and yet he hasn't let the distance that celebrity affords destroy his empathy for the marginalized. His compassion for those who suffer, for those who truly suffer, seems to swell and grow in conjunction with his legions of fans and admirers. I myself am among them, not for what he does in front of a camera or an audience, though that indeed is thrilling. No, I am struck not by his stardom, but by his steadfast refusal to let his fame eviscerate his humanity. No matter how many cameras are shoved in his face, no matter how many overzealous reporters and fans invade the borders of his cherished private life, Benedict Cumberbatch remains committed to being kind. That alone is worth celebrating. That alone is worth honoring. And so we do. Thank you, Benedict, for being so warm and present and engaged when you could be so cold and remote and unmindful of those who do not tread on red carpets. Thank you for acting, quite literally acting, so fiercely in support of so many charities. Thank you for all you do to make the land safer. in the water. For all of this, and for so much more, it is my great honor and joy to present the GEANCO Foundation's 2016 Global Promise Award to Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh goodness! How do I follow that? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for just inviting me here tonight. Look, I'm not David. I'm not Shuazil. I'm not even Nigerian. But I really feel such a welcome part of this family in this event. It's truly humbling to hear those words that you had to say, and I feel incredibly honoured and touched to be here. So why am I here? Two friends of mine, colleagues, but really dear friends, David and Shuazil. They possess something which is truly inspiring to me, and any words you heard just now about what I do, what I try to do, can very much reflect on them. They are two men of profound talent, incredible security in their gifts and in their lives, and yet they have an amazing reserve of love, of intelligence that shines on everyone from their performances, but most importantly from the kind of works that they do so humbly for charities like GEANCO. And I only heard about this when I was working with Curator recently. I only heard about what this foundation achieves, and I caught up with a CNN interview with David Curator on the red carpet, similar to this last year, and what he was talking about in his foundation, how he works with GEANCO to bring about this school that him and his mum set up. These are two men who have, while very, very proud of being Nigerian, have created a career and standing internationally, but have never forgotten their roots and have gone back there to make real, profound, lasting, and physical change, psychological change to the lives of many people in that country, in Nigeria. And I just thought, as most of these initiatives are, they're born out of an idea, but to carry them through to reality, you really have to have something. And that, above all else, is what I'd like to honour in this part of what I have to say tonight, is that they have committed themselves in the flesh, in the person, and on the ground. And that is something which I would absolutely love to do in the future for this foundation. GEANCO's work seems to traverse an impossible array of help for those who need it most, for the most vulnerable, whether they're children or the sick. And to think of what they achieve is extraordinary. They have educational outreach programs, they have this school that they've helped sponsored with Churchill and his mother. They have a group for girls who have suffered at the hands of terrorism to give them safe harbour education, a purpose, and also a sense of self and self-worth. These things all strike a chord with me, and the limited amount of charitable work that I've managed to do or been associated with has touched on all those issues. I work a lot with the Prince of Wales Trust, which is a great foundation in the UK, a charity that has started and patroned by the Prince of Wales as well, and the Prince of Wales. And it's the most beautiful ideal, which is that it reaches out to young people who have had dire beginnings in their life, who have come from impoverished circumstances or difficult homes and have had a troubled beginning, and it gives them a voice, it empowers them with a cause and a reason, and often finances enterprise, and sees through projects from an initial course that they will go on, a sort of a motivating course, but not like a team building course. There is that, but it's also basically to give all of them as individuals a voice to then work together as a group. And then there are gradual steps beyond that into specific programs in music, in the arts, in literature, in medicine, in entrepreneurial business, in fashion, in all walks and life, enterprises of life. And the thing that really, really struck a chord with me is the self-perpetuating good of it. The mentors are people who have gone through that program, and it's growing exponentially. And to be associated with that is a real education and a real privilege. I came from a very white, very privileged upbringing, and I'm only too aware of the chasm between my reality and so many others in my country alone, let alone worldwide. So, again, being in contact with that and somehow trying to give back something of what I had in any shape or form means a great deal. And GEANCO does that work as well. And it does it for people who are in unimaginable circumstances. What I touched on in the speech that I gave at the end of Hamlet for raising money for Save the Children, for Syrian refugees, children and their families, has a similar ideal at its heart. I think all charitable enterprises do, which is it's empowerment. It's to give back something that should never have been taken away from people in the first place, which is innocence, which is education, which is love, which is security, and which is a future. And nothing really, even more so as a parent, speaks more to the heart, to the core of the world's problems than the suffering of children who are denied those basic human rights. So thank you for what you said about what we did. We all, as a cast, it wasn't just me, it was also a wonderful producer, Sonia Friedman, a fantastic team that she then headed up, that I believe is being honoured quite soon in London, that set up a theatre in the camp, the refugee camp in Calais, that was all blossoming at the same time that I had the idea to raise some money and bring an awareness to this appallingly inactive moment in our history where we all had to just galvanise and do something. And it was being a parent, seeing a child on the shore of a country that many people would bathe in, put suntan lotion on, read a book in, play with their children in the surf, to see a young child dead in the arms of an aid worker or a policeman, I can't remember, it was the child I remember. It stopped all of us in our tracks. It had a profound effect on everyone who has an open heart and a pair of eyes. Especially those of us who have children, I think it really can't help but be incredibly powerful as a reminder that these are human beings. These are men, women and children who are suffering in war. 11 million people are being displaced. Many of them women and children, the most vulnerable of those societies. And they've been displaced because of bombing, because of hunger and starvation, because of torture, and because of sniper fire. And they are trying to seek some refuge, some salvation, some hope, some sanctuary, and they need our help. And that's what I was very, very glad to at least make a small contribution to by shining a spotlight on that particular issue at that time. It was so resonant in that moment. I couldn't but do what I did, as I think anyone else in my position would have done. It's an incredible feeling to stand on a red carpet and to pretend to be someone that's being celebrated in a film that's just had its world premiere, Doctor Strange, a new superhero joining Marvel's cinematic universe. And it was a great thrill to play that role. I can't wait for you all to see it. But I play a neurosurgeon in this film, someone who works in the health sector, and he does it for his own ego, for his own self-fulfillment, and the journey of the character is very much a turnaround in that to a position of doing better, doing things for the greater good and not for the self. And that's the true act of heroism of my character in the film, is to realise that. In my research, I met with some neurosurgeons and some incredible nurses as well, and I'm very fortunate to be related by marriage to someone who works as a paramedic in the National Health Service of our country. I can speak about the healthcare system in my country a little bit because of that, and other people that I know who work on the front line of oncology and who I encountered in researching Dr. Strange and other roles. They are the true superheroes. They are the people who make a miracle happen every day by even keeping the existence of the National Health Service a reality. It is a threadbare fight that men and women of world-class expertise help to facilitate, and that miracle would not take place without their enduring hard work, their commitment, and their love for what they do. It is genuinely a miracle that enterprise still survives, and it's the envy of the world, and at long wing may we safeguard it and protect it, and celebrate it, and honour those men and women as the real superheroes, the men and women that keep us alive, that care for the sick and the poorly, that perform spectacular feats of medicine and courage, whether it's on the front line of medical tech with very complex operations like brain surgery, or whether it's the palliative care of children that I've experienced in the wonderful Great Ormond Street Hospital where I visited. These people are the real superheroes. And GEANCO has a lot of them working for them abroad for nothing, giving their time, giving their world-class expertise to complex hip operations, to hoping to try and lower the incredibly high death rate in birth, to facilitating with care packages for expectant mothers to help educate and to bring safety and medical need to those who are most vulnerable in those situations. So again, that is a link of sorts. And teachers draw in a line, I suppose, from the work I do with the Prince of Wales Trust, because of the tutorship and the mentorship that goes on in those programs. It really is the inspiration of men and women who have gone through those programs that passes on to their group, to their children that they work with. And that's the same again for the Foundation's work and how you've helped with Children's Enterprise in the school. If you start life with the idea that you have a purpose, that you are safe in your education, you can go to a classroom and not fear gunfire, not fear rape, not fear torture, not fear any abuse of what, again, your basic human rights should be as a child. You'd imagine that should be a universal right. Imagine having to struggle with any of those things in our childhoods. I lived in a world so far removed from those realities that the idea that it exists is so shocking that it will propel me to work as hard as I can to bring a spotlight away from me as an actor on the red carpet playing a superhero to some true superheroes. And like I said, the medical profession, but also teachers who work in those sectors are beyond gifted in their abilities to give back, to protect, and to give the right of an education to children around the world. And also to those children, to the people that make that journey from a place of darkness to a place of light with their hope. They, with their inspirational stories, prove that it can be done. This isn't asking for something that's impossible. And this foundation's work, as I'm just beginning to find out, has made great inroads, practical steps, made real differences, saved lives, helped people in the most obscure and the most dangerous and the most underprivileged circumstances in Nigeria. So it's just a thrill to be in this room. I can't thank you enough for my award and for those kind words, and God bless you all. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for that powerful call to action, and thank you. What you're able to do in front of audiences and on the screen pales in comparison to what you do for those who have no hope of ever seeing you in the many roles you play. And the fact that you take time to do that is really epitomized the fact that you took time to do this. in the midst of the biggest movie of the year, taking time to be with us. Just honor you for that. So thanks again. So we're going to show you a special picture now. Take a look at the girl on the right. Her name is Rejoice. She was born in a small village in northern Nigeria, and from the moment she was born, her name came with a question mark attached. Rejoice. Rejoice. Why in the hell would you name your daughter Rejoice? She was born in a hovel. She lives in a dusty, miserable corner of a poor, violent, corrupt mess of a country. You make a sick joke of her lot in life by naming her Rejoice. And yet her mother was firm. Her name is Rejoice. And so Rejoice grew up in that miserable corner of that corrupt mess of a country. She loved her parents. And her parents, despite their grinding poverty, loved her enough to put her in school. A rare gift for a girl growing up in northern Nigeria. And then Boko Haram came. These terrorists brought their own cruel set of question marks. Why is Rejoice in school? Why is she not married and pregnant with her own child? She's 13, and it's way past time for her to do the only things girls are permitted to do: get pregnant and stay ignorant. One day, 3 years ago, word came to Rejoice's father that Boko Haram was coming to her school. He rushed in the family jalopy to pick her up. He got her, and they made their way out of the village. The terrorists are as clever as they are cruel. Boko Haram set up an ambush on the main road leading out of town, and as Rejoice and her father passed, they opened fire. Rejoice's father was killed instantly, and Rejoice flew through the windshield. She wears that black scarf low over her head to cover the scars. Eventually, Rejoice's grandfather found her, and they began 3 painful, horrific years traveling from village to village, camp to camp, searching for food, for shelter, for safety, for home. For Rejoice, life became the mouth of a shark. She lost all of her possessions except for that question mark. That question mark stupidly, ignorantly remained bolted even more tightly to her name. According to the dictionary, rejoice means to feel or show great joy or delight. What did this girl have to delight in? Her story was over. And then a famous man in a famous land decided to act. When we honored David Oyelowo last year, he pushed me to do something to help these girls. He conceived of a scholarship for victims of terrorism, and he funded it himself, a breathtakingly rare thing for a celebrity to do. Trust me. And even more stunningly, he got his most famous of friends, Oprah Winfrey, to contribute even more money. Our people in Nigeria found Rejoice literally wasting away in a camp. And now, at this very moment, she is in school, a safe, beautiful, successful, all-girls school in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. With 2 other scholarship recipients, she's learning again, dreaming again, living again. My dad and I visited her in August, and after she cleaned her plate at dinner, we listened as she told her story. Before we left, I asked if I could give her name and tell her story to our supporters right here in LA. And for the first time in 3 years, her face lit up. Yes, I want people to know my story. I want people to know my name. And that was it. In that wonderful moment, the question mark was gone forever. And in its place was an exclamation point. Rejoice. What does this girl have to delight in? She delights in you. She delights in the great gift that you gave her. By answering our appeal, David's appeal, you changed the arc of her life forever. her life and the lives of so many girls to come will receive scholarship and hope and exclamation points. And so I take this moment to thank you. Your generosity is a beautiful act of rebellion against ignorance and violence and reckless hatred. And as we now listen to David discuss his wonderful scholarship in a CNN interview, please understand and appreciate how strong you are, how powerful you are. You literally straighten question marks into exclamation points. And for that, I delight in you. For that, I rejoice.